Have you ever been to a Catholic Mass or maybe just seen one on TV and thought, what is going on here? It's this ancient ritual, right? Full of signs and symbols and prayers. While today, we're going to pull back the curtain. We're going to demystify this 2,000-year-old ceremony and break it down in a way that hopefully makes sense to everybody. For a lot of people, whether you're outside the tradition or even if you grew up in it, all the gestures, the standing, the sitting, the kneeling, it can be pretty confusing. So, what's the real meaning behind all of it? Well, to really get it, you just need one simple key. And here it is. The key is to think of the Mass not as a performance you're supposed to watch, but as a sacred meal. And just like any meal, it has a structure, a flow. There are four main parts: the gathering, the storytelling, the meal sharing, and then the commissioning. So let's walk through it part by part. Okay, so first up, the gathering. Think about it. When you have friends over for dinner, what's the first thing that happens? You welcome everyone, right? You turn this group of individuals into a little community, and that is exactly the point of what they call the introductory rites. And look, this is way more than just, getting everyone into their seats. The whole idea is to take all these separate people who are all coming in from their own busy, crazy weeks and form them into a single, unified community to become one body ready to listen and, well, break bread together. So how do they actually do that? Well, it happens through a few really powerful rituals right at the start. It kicks off with the sign of the cross, that simple gesture that's also a prayer. Then the priest greets everyone, and they all greet him back, which creates this immediate connection. After that, there's a quiet moment, the penitential act, where everyone kind of acknowledges their shared humanity, their imperfections, and asks for mercy. And a lot of the time, this whole gathering thing wraps up with the Gloria, this incredible ancient hymn that just fills the room with one voice of praise. All right, so everyone's gathered. We're all one community. So what's next? At any good dinner party, you talk, you share stories. And that's exactly what the second part of the Mass is all about. It's the storytelling, or what's officially called the Liturgy of the Word. So now that they're all together, the community sits down to listen to their shared story, and it unfolds in a really specific, intentional way. First, you get a reading from the Old Testament, which connects them all back to their ancient Jewish roots. Then a psalm is sung, which is like a musical response to what they just heard. After that, there's a letter from one of the early apostles offering some practical wisdom. And all of this is building up to the high point, the gospel. This is when everyone stands up. It's a sign of respect to hear the words and actions of Jesus himself. Now, here's a belief that is absolutely central to understanding this part of the Mass. For Catholics, this isn't just a history lesson. They're not just reading old texts. The belief is that Christ himself is actually present in the Word and is speaking directly to them, right then and there. It's a living dialogue happening in real time. But you might be thinking, wow, that's a lot of scripture. And you'd be right to be a little surprised. For centuries, the average Catholic just didn't hear this much of the Bible at Mass. So what changed? Well, the answer lies in this really pivotal moment in the Church's modern history. Okay, so back in the 1960s, there was this massive event called the Second Vatican Council, or Vatican II, and it really shook things up. Before then, Mass was all in Latin. Most people in the pews were basically silent observers. But the council had this goal that was simple but totally revolutionary. They wanted full, conscious, and active participation from everyone. And a huge part of making that happen was opening up what they called the treasures of the Bible. They created this new 3-year cycle of readings so that people could finally hear the story in all its richness. So this whole storytelling section wraps up with two final things. First, the priest gives a homily. The idea here is to break open those ancient scriptures and show how they connect to our lives today, in the 21st century. Then, after that, everyone stands up together to say the creed. It's this shared statement of their core beliefs, uniting them all over again in a single voice. Okay, now we're getting to the absolute heart of the ritual. This is the main course of our sacred meal, the meal sharing. It's officially called the Liturgy of the Eucharist. And you'll notice the focus in the room literally shifts now, moving away from the lectern where the story was told and over to the altar. That word, Eucharist, it actually comes from a Greek word that means thanksgiving. And for Catholics, this isn't just one part of the Mass. They call it the source and summit of their entire faith. So why is it so important? Because they see it as a sacred meal that makes the sacrifice of Jesus from the Last Supper and the cross truly present, right there and then. This whole part of the Mass unfolds in three really distinct, powerful steps. First up is the preparation of the gifts. This is when bread and wine are brought up to the altar. That leads into the second step, the Eucharistic prayer. This is the great prayer of thanksgiving, the absolute center of the Mass. And it all culminates in the third step, the communion rite, when the community finally shares in the sacred meal. Now, the most crucial moment of the entire Mass happens during that Eucharistic prayer. The priest, who is understood to be acting in the person of Christ, says the exact same words that Jesus spoke at the Last Supper over the bread and wine. And at this moment, it's called the consecration. Catholics believe that, through a miracle, the bread and wine are fundamentally changed. They become the actual body and blood of Christ. And right after that, the community comes forward to share in communion. For believers, this is so much more than just a symbol. It's understood as the most intimate union possible with Christ. It's like receiving spiritual nourishment, something to strengthen them for the journey of life. Well, every good meal has to come to an end, right? But with this sacred meal, the ending isn't just about saying goodbye. The fourth and final part is called the commissioning. And yeah, it's the shortest part of the Mass, but in a lot of ways, it's the entire point. And this is a really important point to get. The ritual is never ever meant to be an escape from the world. It's actually designed to be fuel for the world. The whole idea is that what happens inside the church building is supposed to go out and transform what happens outside of it. So the Mass ends with what's called a dismissal. The priest sends everyone out with a clear instruction, a mission, really. He'll say something like, "Go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your life." And you can see, that's not just goodbye. It's a commissioning. It's a sending forth to take everything they've just experienced and put it into action in their everyday lives. So when you look at it this way, the Mass is really a journey. You go from being a scattered crowd to a unified body, from just listening to a story to becoming a part of it, from receiving the sacred meal to being sent out on a mission. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. How does a ritual this ancient continue to shape and give meaning to millions of lives right here in our thoroughly modern world?